Let's talk to James Ball, political editor of The New World. James, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. A big break for Keir Starmer it will be, I would imagine, if we manage to get this Gaza peace deal off the ground. We're told that they're going to be signing it sometime between 9 o'clock, possibly this morning, maybe 10 o'clock. I mean, he hasn't had a lot to do with it, but he'll be able to bask in the sort of the glow of it, won't he?
I think there'd be a palpable relief for absolutely everyone. You know, it'd be good news for Keir. I think it'd be good news for pretty much anyone in the world. I think the issue and the sort of hesitation is, you know, the old phrase, it's the hope that kills you.
Yes.
This would be the third ceasefire deal on this conflict. The first two did not stick. There are bigger promises on how many people would be released, how quickly things would happen, and crucially, how fast the hostages would be home. We think there's 20 left alive.
Yeah.
Supposedly, they could be out as early as Monday. I would love this one to be real. I think a lot of people would, whether you like Trump or loathe him.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's rooting against it,
No.
other than perhaps some of the people who are signing the deal on both sides. So I think it's mostly nervousness, right? I want this to be real. I'm just not sure I think it is.
I know, that's the problem, isn't it? Because you always wonder, and I said this at the time when it was sort of first floated, that, you know, why would Hamas actually go along with something which effectively ends their ability to do anything, ends their ability to run anything, ends their ability to run Gaza, ends their ability to be a terrorist organisation, and they just have to sort of disappear into the shadows. It doesn't sound like they'd agree to that.
No, and they haven't, brutally honestly, they haven't cared very much about Gazan civilian casualties in anything they've done until now, and I don't believe they've started. And so, you know, and on the other hand, there are a lot of reasons that Netanyahu's been anxious about ending this war. He doesn't want to have the internal investigations into October 7th. His far-right sort of flank in his coalition doesn't want to. And so, do I think that Hamas has had a personality transplant? No. Do I think Israel's government has? No. But maybe everyone's recognizing it's got to end somewhere. You know, that's the only hope we can have looking at this, because there's a lot of reasons to look and feel skeptical, but maybe this time's different.
Yeah, maybe. Let's have a look at Donald Trump speaking with hostage families on the phone about this deal.
Mr. President, we believe in you. We know you've done so much for us over the past, since you became a president, and even before that. And we trust you fulfill the mission until every hostage, every 48 of the hostages are home. Thank you so much. Blessed be the peacemakers.
God bless you, Mr. President. God bless America.
Thank you very much. You just take care of yourselves. The hostages will come back. They're all coming back on Monday.
I mean, the interesting thing as well about this story, James, is how it's affected British politics, isn't it? Because, I mean, you know, we saw the weekend, Keir Starmer begging, if you like, on his sort of hands and knees, the protesters who ended up protesting anyway, asking them not to protest, asking them not to do the whole kind of, you know, Free Palestine march in London. They did it anyway. I wonder how much of this will continue if the peace deal is done. Will the protesters stop protesting? Will Keir Starmer be able to get some kind of political gain out of it? Or will it continue to be a kind of massive thorn in his side?
I think for as long as the conflict pauses, the protests will pause, and hopefully some of the awful heat will come out of it. You know, we've seen a very, very visible rise in anti-Semitism. We've seen some rise in Islamophobia and in polarization, full stop. I think if the heat comes out, that really helps, especially as Keir Starmer has no control over this. He is really not a player in the ceasefire. In reality, we barely supply any arms to Israel. We do not have a good relationship with that government. And so this is something where, other than how to respond to the protests and how far to enforce things like the prescription on Palestine action, which I think has descended into utter farce, whatever you think of that group, this is something that's just run and run for the government, over which it has absolutely no control. And so, you know, I know people are cynical about these protests. I think people are very, very distressed by the awful scenes that they see from Gaza. I think if those scenes stop, if there is a prospect of some peace, it will help at home. I think the fact it helps Keir Starmer is perhaps the least important part of the deal, but I think it would help him somewhat.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's not unimportant to people who live in this country. It's certainly not unimportant to Jewish communities. After what we saw in Manchester last week, a lot of Jewish communities saying, you know, we feel really, really nervous. We feel really, under attack. We feel as though we can't go out. I mean, I've spoken to friends of mine who are Jewish who say, you know, I've got an elderly mother. She doesn't want to go outside. She's worried that, you know, if she does, she's going to be in some danger. And so they've got to get a grip of this. They've got to get on top of it. And they've got, you know, Shabana Mahmood has said that she's going to, you know, introduce new rules which will make it illegal for people to march around. And I think most of us would be slightly squeamish about all of that, because you kind of go, well, what else are you going to ban, you know? And so I think it's quite a big quagmire, if you like, for Starmer.
I think it absolutely is. I think all they can control is their response in the UK, and I don't think they've done as well as they could at trying to take the heat out, take the bitterness out. I have heard Jewish friends talk about, you know, the proverbial suitcase in the hall in a very literal way, people wondering how long it will be safe to be here. I've had more than one say, you know, I think Stephen Bush in the FT yesterday wrote, he's sort of never felt less sympathetic to Israel and never felt the need for it more as a British Jew.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the idea that people don't feel safe in this country, don't feel like they can belong in this country when they desperately want to and have for such a long time is a tragedy. And I think the government, it's always going to fall on that. On the other hand, there are limits to what you can do in a polarised time. I actually thought they got it right last weekend. I thought the duty of the government was to say, should you come out on this weekend? Is this the time for it? You know, could you not show some sensitivity? Could you not reflect on the horror of the recent attack? You know, the stretch resources and not protest without banning it. You know, I think sometimes the right thing for the government to do is to say something and then to not actually curtail the right, and to leave the choice on the organisers and to leave that moral dilemma on them.
Yeah, maybe.
I think
that it makes them look
right.
look really awful at that point, doesn't it?
Exactly. I don't think people help their causes by doing it, just as the people who chose the 7th of October to do university walkouts and campus walkouts. I think they damage their own cause in that way, and I think sometimes the government's job is just to use the bully pulpit and to frame things in those ways. Anytime I see a crackdown on protest, I get very anxious, and I don't think that's British, and I don't think that protects any minorities either.
No.
Ultimately, you know, social sanction matters too.
Yeah, and now that we sort of have got through the conference season, you know, we've pretty much come to an end. We've seen the Greens and their crazy conference. We've seen Reform and their sort of, you know, razzmatazz, you know, conference with a lot of, you know, bang bells and whistles. We've seen the Labour Party conference, which was kind of a bit weird because it was riven by, you know, rumours that Keir Starmer was going to be ousted in some way, shape or form. The Tories kind of, you know, doesn't really seem to matter to anyone. We come back to normal, I guess, in Westminster, if there is such a thing. What is Keir Starmer's likelihood of, I don't know, survival, I suppose, for want of a better word, because, you know, he's got people coming at him from all sides. We've got Lucy Powell probably going to become the Deputy Prime Minister, Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, by the way. And we've still got the Morgan McSweeney scandal sort of swilling around. We've got all sorts of other problems that he's got. None of that has gone away. So what does he do when he comes back?
I think there's a bit of a depressing return to reality for government MPs, and I mean, that's the vibe I get speaking to them. They actually, I think, had quite a nice time at conference. I think the expectations were so low and the mood was so low that actually a few days meeting up with each other without obvious disasters cheered them up a bit. It felt to me like the Tories had a similar experience. But nothing's actually changed. Right. You know, the polls are still dreadful. The local elections are still coming. The economic fundamentals are bad, and there's a lot going on in the world. And so I think there is a bit of a sort of return to reality with a bump. And I don't think anyone has a sense that the government has a plan out of this. You know, they seem to be a lot like Rishi Sunak's government was day to day. They seem to be managing the latest crisis and hoping something comes up. And nothing came up for Rishi Sunak, and nothing is likely to come up for Labour. When you're in the government, things change if you make them change. And it's very, very hard to point to any big swing that the government's taking that might result in much bigger growth or that might really change the public mood. They seem to be hoping that lots of little changes will do something big. And maybe that pays off, but it doesn't feel like it to me.
No, indeed. James, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. James Ball, political editor of The New World, formerly known, of course, as the New European.